Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Please welcome to the stage the 17th President of the University of Notre Dame, Reverend John I. Jenkins, CSC.
Thank you. Well, good evening. I am very pleased to welcome each of you to this important production of the Suppliants Project, Ukraine. I welcome both those who are here in person at Notre Dame Stadium and those joining us online from locations around the world. I also want to extend a very special welcome to Korina Garbar-Katovic, the former president of the Republic of Croatia, who is here with us in the stadium and will present the Nanovic Forum lecture on campus tomorrow. We are partnering with Theater of War Productions, who is producing this special performance and conversation. Tonight's event is part of the Notre Dame Forum, a year-long set of discussions and events on the theme of war and peace. This year's forum theme acknowledges the reality that conflict and violence are once again on the rise around the world. Recently, the United Nations has warned that peace is more under threat globally than it has ever been since World War II. Currently, nearly a quarter of the global population lives in conflict-affected areas. Some of these conflicts receive widespread global media coverage, while others are hardly acknowledged, even though they may be no less devastating. In the midst of these sobering realities, this evening you will witness a reimagining of a 25-year-old Greek tragedy that will serve as a catalyst for a global conversation about the costs of war in our world today. Tonight's readings will be performed by a cast of 3 acclaimed actors and a chorus of 7 students from the Ukrainian Catholic University who are studying at Notre Dame during the fall semester. We will also hear from 6 members of our Notre Dame community who have personally experienced war and violence in their home countries of Afghanistan, Burkina Faso, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Nicaragua, Ukraine, and Vietnam. We are grateful to these members of our Notre Dame community for sharing their insights with us. In his recent book, Against War, Building a Culture of Peace, Pope Francis writes, "If we had memory, we would know that war, before it reaches the front lines, must be stopped in the heart. Hate, before it is too late, must be eradicated from our hearts. In order to do so, there is need for dialogue, negotiation, listening, diplomatic skills and creativity, and far-sighted politics capable of building new systems of coexistence that is no longer based on the power of weapons." Perhaps tonight's production and the ensuing conversation will contribute to the transformation of hearts and minds and better equip us for the work of building peace. I am now pleased to turn the program over to Brian Dores, Artistic Director for Theater of War Productions. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Brian Dores. I'm the Artistic Director of Theater of War Productions. We're a social impact company that uses theater as a tool for helping communities address pressing public health and social issues, and we are thrilled you could join us tonight for our presentation of the Suppliants Project, Ukraine, as part of the University of Notre Dame's annual forum, this year entitled War and Peace. Tonight, for the first time since the pandemic began, we will be performing live and in person for an audience of students, faculty, staff, and community members here in the iconic football stadium at the University of Notre Dame, as well as for people all over the world on Zoom. The Suppliants Project Ukraine presents dramatic readings of Aeschylus' Suppliants to help frame guided discussions about the impact of war on individuals, families, communities, nations. Using a 2,500-year-old text as a catalyst for powerful global dialogue, the project seeks to amplify and humanize the voices and perspectives of people whose lives have been touched by war, including refugees, students, activists, and artists from Ukraine and other countries who will participate in the performance as well as the discussion tonight. For those of you joining us digitally, tonight's event is being captioned in English, and you can activate those captions now at the bottom of your screen. The text of the play will be captioned in Ukrainian via the stream text link we're now dropping into the Zoom chat. And we will also be offering English and Ukrainian audio interpretation throughout the event on Zoom. To hear live audio interpretation in one of the two languages, if you're on Zoom, please activate the English and Ukrainian audio channel, either one at the bottom of your screen now. For those, before getting started, I want to thank our partners at the University of Notre Dame. Our sincere thanks go to Father John Jenkins, the team in the President's office, and the members of the Forum Advisory Committee for so graciously hosting us, with special thanks to my brother, Mark Dories, who's seated in the bleachers over here, head of the Graduate Choral Conducting Program and Artistic Director of Notre Dame's Children's Choir, for introducing me to his colleagues and initiating this collaboration. I'd also like to offer our sincere thanks to the amazing staff here at Notre Dame Studios and the Office of University Enterprises and Events for collaborating so closely with us to ensure the success of tonight's event. It's been a privilege working with you all. Tonight's event will unfold in three parts. First, a group of actors and a chorus of Ukrainian students will read Aeschylus' ancient play, The Suppliants, a play that was first performed in the 5th century BC in Athens nearly 2,500 years ago. Tonight, we have a wonderful group of award-winning actors to perform for you here at Notre Dame, including Anthony Edwards, whom you may know from Top Gun and ER, Keith David, whom you may have recently seen in Nope and Armageddon, and Tate Donovan, who you may know from Friends or as the voice of Hercules in the Disney film, and many other star turns. We're delighted to have these wonderful three actors with us to perform for you tonight. And we're delighted they are joined on stage by 7 Ukrainian students from Ukrainian Catholic University in Lviv who are studying here at the University of Notre Dame for the 2022 fall semester. And I'm not going to butcher their last names as much as I rehearsed them before, so I'm going to say their first names, and then you can see on our website and on Eventbrite and other places the posters. But we have Bodana, Christina, Olenka, Olha, Yorena, Solomia, and Sofia. And we're so delighted to have these incredible 7 students here with us to perform for you. As soon as the reading is over, about 45 minutes in, the actors will move to their seats in the audience over here, and we'll invite a group of community panelists who've joined us to come up and take the actors' place on stage. These are individuals whose lives have been impacted by war, and they're going to come up and respond in the moment to what they heard and saw in the ancient play that resonated with them from their hearts and their guts. And they're going to model for us as an audience what we hope you'll do during the larger discussion that's going to follow. Following the panelists' brief remarks, we'll open up the floor to what we hope will be a lively, healing, constructive conversation with you, the audience here at Notre Dame and on Zoom. During the discussion, I'll ask questions of you about the ancient play and how it speaks and resonates with you today. And if you'd like to respond to one of my questions, if you're in the stadium, all you have to do is raise your hand, and one of our 7 mic runners will come to you, and a cameraman will come to you, and we'll put you up in the Zoom. And if you're on Zoom, all you need to do is raise your hand using the raise your hand function on Zoom, and we're going to bring some of you out in the global audience onto the screen and onto this large video board behind us. And we're going to try to have a conversation across space and across time, across boundaries and borders, without the mediation of governments or corporations, but directly between citizens of the world. And for each question, we'll call upon a number of people who raise their hands, and we'll bring them into the discussion either with a microphone and on the screen. This is still new territory for us at Theater of War Productions. We've done thousands of events over the last 15 years, but since the pandemic began, we've been doing most of our work virtually in hybrid forum. So we apologize in advance. We're not going to get to everybody who raises their hands in the discussion that will follow. And there might be glitches during the event, but that's okay. From our perspective, making mistakes and overcoming them is at the center of our model. Our hope is that if we make mistakes and then adapt and move on from them, we're modeling for you what we're asking you as an audience to do during the discussion. We hope you will join us by taking the risk of not sounding brilliant, of making a mistake, of being present with your thoughts, and not being polished in order to be present with each other across the planet and the world and here in this stadium without judgment and with shared vulnerability. This is what makes us human, and it's the only way out of this mess. And if tonight's event moves you in some way to action beyond discussion, for those of you on Zoom, we're dropping a couple links into the chat now to the President and First Lady Zelensky's charities. You can get involved with them. And, of course, those links will be on Theater of War's website as well, theaterofwar.com, if you want to find them in the Ways to Help section. Now, before we get started, here's all you need to know about Aeschylus' play, The Suppliants. 50 refugees approach a border in ancient Argos carrying branches in their hands, praying, singing, shouting, calling and responding to each other. They have traveled a great distance across deserts and oceans, seeking safety and asylum from forced marriage and violence brought upon them by their cousins who now pursue them. And now, without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our actors and their 40-minute reading and interpretation of Aeschylus' ancient play, The Suppliants.
I call out to Zeus, god of beggars, protector of suppliants. Look upon this caravan with compassion.
We have traveled here for many days across the open ocean, fleeing our holy homeland, whose pastures border Syria.
We are not criminals sent into exile, publicly banished for spilling blood.
We are refugees, seeking asylum from violence and unholy matrimony forced upon us by our cousins.
It was our father, Danaus, our leader and guide, who brought us here, choosing the best in a series of bad options, spiriting us swiftly across the sea to the rocky shores of Argos.
For this is the land from which we came. An entire race sprung up from Zeus's embrace when he forced himself upon Io, that unfortunate girl who became a cow, mercilessly tortured by gadflies and chased halfway across the world.
To what other country could we come, holding branches in our hands, woven with wool, the symbol of suppliants, that will welcome us more than this one?
We call out to the city and to our ancestral land with its clear running waters.
We call out to the gods above us and the vengeful down below, dwelling deep within the earth, watching over the dead.
We call out to Zeus, who guards the homes of righteous men.
Receive us with kindness and with mercy. Deliver us from danger before a brutal horde of men arrives upon these shores.
Send their ships back out to sea, then batter them with raging winds and unforgiving rains.
Lash their decks with lightning and violent waves, throwing men overboard into the ocean.
Drown them in the churning surf and never let them lay their hands on us again, violating our rights.
Children, please be careful with your words. Mindful that I, your trusted father, led you here, carefully across the sea, navigating treacherous waters with caution and skill. Now that we have arrived, I see what awaits us here on shore. Listen closely to what I am about to say. Memorize my words. Inscribe them in your minds. There is a cloud of dust on the horizon, kicked up by chariot wheels and the pounding hooves of horses, carrying men wielding shields and spears, an army advancing on our position, perhaps the rulers of this land, coming to see who we are, no matter what the intentions of their leader may be to welcome us or fiercely attack. It would be best, my children, for you to sit upon that hill, sacred to the gods who gather there, and use it as a shield. For an altar is always stronger than a wall. Move quickly now, with your heads bent down in reverence. And in your hands, hold these branches woven in white wool, to show that you are suppliants, protected by Zeus. Only speak when spoken to, and when you do, be sure to answer their questions with pitiful words, in a respectful tone of foreigners seeking refuge in their land. Tell them why you fled your country, assuring them that you are not criminals sent into exile for shedding blood. Do this all without seeming arrogant or overreaching in your speech. You must always appear modest and calm, casting your eyes down toward the ground, showing these men the utmost respect. You must not come across as bold and self-important or too eager to speak, nor should you be hesitant or halting, for the slight slip in either direction will offend these people to no end. Remember this: be submissive. You are foreigners and fugitives in need of their assistance. In order to speak, in order to seem weak, you must not use language that is strong.
Father, once again you have given us sound advice, which we promise to obey, always remembering your wise words.
I call upon Zeus, father of our people.
Please see us and our struggle.
Yes. May he look down upon us with kindness.
Father, may we come down and sit by your side over there at the base of the altar?
Come down quickly, my children, and do not delay.
We call out to Zeus, have pity upon us in our moment of need, or we may be destroyed.
With his mercy and grace, all will turn out well in the end.
We call out to Helios, with his healing rays to save us.
And to Apollo, who, although a god, was once exiled from heaven.
He understands our pain and will no doubt show compassion for us mortals.
May he stand by our side and defend us from our enemies.
What other gods should we invoke?
I see a trident here on this altar, sacred symbol of the god Poseidon.
He saw us safely across the sea.
May he receive us here on land.
Here is one more, Hermes, the messenger of God, as he is known by the Greeks.
May he deliver good news and deliver us to freedom.
They are almost here. Gather around the altar, at the feet of these gods who rule over the city. Sit upon the sacred soil like flocks of doves shivering in fear of the hawks circling above them. Kindred enemies that prey upon their own species, polluting their race with the blood of other birds, an unholy act. For how can a bird be pure if it preys on one of its own? In the same way, how can a man who forces himself in marriage upon a woman against her wishes, without the blessings of her father, be pure? There is a special place in Hades for such a man after he dies, for it is said that another Zeus rules over the land of the dead, sitting in judgment over such evil deeds. Here they come. Keep your eyes down and speak to them just as I said, and you will elicit sympathy and win victory in the end.
Strangers, where are you from? Your clothing is not Greek, but barbarian. From the weave of your robes, I can see that you are not from Argos, nor any other part of Greece, for that matter. How fearless you all are. How brave to come to this country without a messenger, a guide, or even a guard for protection. I am impressed. And I see those suppliant branches there by your side, before the gods who gather at these altars. As a Greek, I suppose I could venture a guess as to what this all means, but since you are here, I would prefer to hear it from you.
What you have said about our clothing is correct.
But before we say more, we need to know how to address you.
Are you a citizen, a messenger, or the ruler of the city?
Please feel free to speak to me and answer all of my questions. For I am Pelasgus, son of Polychthon, the earth-born first of men who came straight from the soil. I am the ruler of this land. The people here who work the earth with their hands are called Pelasgians. We call this area Appia, after an ancient seer and healer, the son of Apollo, who rid this land of man-eating monsters, a deadly nest of snakes that sprung up from the earth and terrorized our people. Ever since he cured our land of this sickness, we have honored Apis by remembering him in our prayers. Now that I have told you about Argos, tell me about your family and the land from which you came. But please be brief, as our citizens do not appreciate that speeches that go on for too long.
Our story is short and cut straight to the point.
We are Argives, by birth descendants of a cow that was blessed with a child.
We will gladly verify the truth of this statement if you would like to hear more.
I am confused, strangers, by your strange words. How could you possibly come from Argos? You look like Libyans to me, and certainly bear no resemblance to the people of this land. Please explain to me simply and clearly so I can understand how you trace your family back to Argos.
Is it said that long ago, Io once served as a priestess in the temple of Hera, here on Argos?
Yes, of course. We have all heard that story.
And does this same story recount how Zeus lasted after a mortal?
Yes, and how Hera was aware of the affair.
And what became of the poor girl?
Well, Hera turned her into a cow.
And when the girl grew horns, did Zeus approach her?
Yes, they say he took the form of a bull.
How did Hera react?
She sent an all-seeing, hundred-eyed giant to watch the cow.
And who was this all-seeing sentinel?
Argos, son of the earth. Hermes blinded and slew him, and is ordered to do so by Zeus.
And what other tortures did Hera devise for the cow?
She sent a fly to sting her backside and keep her hind legs moving.
We call it a gadfly.
It drove her galloping out of this land to regions far from Argos.
Our stories are exactly the same. It chased her all the way to Egypt, straight into Zeus's embrace, which gave her a child.
And who is it that claims to be the calf?
Epaphus, whose name means touch, in honor of how he was deceived.
And who came from Epaphus?
A daughter named Libya, who helped harvest the land in the largest region on earth.
And who came from her?
Twin sons named Agenor and Balus.
Balus was the father of my father.
He had 2 sons.
What is your father's name?
Danaus.
His brother has 50 sons.
Well, speak clearly and do not withhold anything. What is his brother's name?
Aegyptus.
Now that you know the history of our family stretching all the way back to Argos,
we pray that you will provide us sanctuary.
From what you have said, it seems that you do have some ancient connection to Argos. But what grave misfortune made you abandon your fatherland and brought you to our shores?
Lord of the Pelasgians, the fortunes of mortals come in many colors and are almost never exactly the same.
Who could ever have predicted that our sudden and unexpected flight from violence would bring us back to Argos,
where our ancient family began?
Is that why you have come here as suppliants, standing before these gathered gods with those fresh-cut branches in your hands woven with wool?
Yes, to avoid becoming slaves to our cousins.
What is it exactly you would have me do without violating my sacred duties?
When they come for us, do not turn us over to them.
That is no small request. You are asking me to start a war.
those who are just always protect their allies from harm.
Yes, if they are truly allies from the beginning.
Do you not honor the gods when their altars are covered with suppliant branches?
Just looking at them now, wreathed with leaves, it fills me with fear, for I do not wish to incite the all-consuming anger of Zeus, god of beggars and suppliants.
Son of Palaektron, ruler of the Pelasgians,
hear our prayer with compassion and an open heart.
See us.
We are fugitives,
escaping from danger,
like cattle hunted by wolves,
calling out to their herdsmen for help.
Yes, I see you kneeling here before the gods and asking for assistance under the shade of freshly cut branches. But I also see violence on the horizon if we should welcome you within our walls, extending a hand of friendship. So I say this. May no unexpected disaster come from granting your request. No military conflict or civil unrest for which the city does not wish.
May Themis, daughter of Zeus, goddess of justice who protects all suppliants, look upon our struggle and ensure that it brings you no unwanted trouble.
I'll hope that you, who are older and more experienced, will listen to younger voices with an open heart, showing mercy for us suppliants and reverence for what is sacred.
Please understand, you are not sitting in front of the hearth in my private home. If the entire city is sickened, stained by a source of pollution, then its people must collectively work on a cure. I will make no promises until I have spoken with all the citizens whose lives will be affected by this decision.
But you are the city.
You are the people.
As king ruling over the city's hearts and temples, you are the subject to no one.
The people bend to your singular will and your sovereign throne.
Do not pollute the city with your indecision.
May pollution only infect our enemies. I cannot help you without possibly harming the city and risking an all-out war. But it would also be dangerous to ignore your prayers and reject your supplications. I am utterly conflicted, paralyzed by an overwhelming fear of taking action and making the wrong decision. No matter what I choose to do, I could bring great suffering upon this city.
Look to the God high above, looking down upon us now,
judging our actions.
The protector of all mortals,
who in their abject suffering call out to friends and neighbors for assistance,
but are not treated justly in accordance with custom.
The righteous wrath of Zeus, god of suppliants,
awaits all those who choose not to hear the cries of the suffering.
But if the laws of your country state that the sons of Aegyptus have every right to claim your women as their wives, given that they are the next of kin, who would dare stand in their way? You must make your case in accordance with the laws of the country from which you came, showing they have no authority over you.
May we never be subjugated by this man
or live under their authority.
In order to escape these toxic bonds, we are ready to run away again, charting our way by the stars.
This by no means is an easy decision, and you will not force me to make it. Although I am king, I will not do anything without the agreement of my people, so they will not say when fortune turns against us, you honored these aliens and destroyed this city.
Bonded by blood on both sides of the struggle,
Zeus hears all arguments and judges them impartially,
allotting just punishments to evil men and rewarding the righteous.
With such an even-handed arbiter presiding over these affairs, why hesitate to do what is right?
First, I must seek the counsel of our citizens so deep and resolute that like a diver swimming to the bottom of the ocean, I will see everything clearly and without any confusion, so that, above all, no trouble will ever come to this city, and we shall neither start a conflict by letting you enter our gates, nor shall we incite the unrelenting anger of the gods, which, even after death, does not abate, for abandoning you before these sacred altars. Surely you see our need for wise and measured counsel.
speak with your people, then stand by our side in holy reverence for what the gods demand.
Do not betray a group of fugitives who have been driven from their homeland by godless men.
You are the ruler of this land.
Do not look upon our suffering as we are abducted from these altars and do nothing.
Witness the reckless violence of these men and avoid the wrath of God.
Do not stand by idly as we suppliants are dragged away from this consecrated place.
Like horses pulled by bridles with bits between our teeth and vulgar groping hands all over our finely woven robes.
Know this.
No matter what you should decide,
Whatever happens to us will have consequences.
For your home
and for your children,
who will be left to pay in full
for what is done to us.
Do not forget that the laws of God are righteous and always just.
Yes, I am aware of this. I find myself standing at a crossroads. Either way, I may plunge this city into unending violence brought upon us by gods or men. There is no path that does not lead to catastrophe. In order to avoid the bloodshed to come, we must make sacrifices to the gods, slaughtering many animals at their altars with the hope of saving ourselves from impending disaster. This will be the end of my reign, for I had no desire to wade into these waters. I hope I am wrong, but also do not wish to know or foresee the evils that await me. May it all go well, defying my expectations.
please hear our final appeal for mercy and compassion.
Speak. I am listening. Your words will not escape my ears.
We have woven belts to gather our robes.
Yes?
but they can be used for other purposes.
What exactly do you mean by that? What are you trying to say?
if you refuse to welcome us into the city by pledging your support, then we will be forced to use them.
In what way?
to decorate the statues of the gods with strange offerings.
Speak plainly. Do not cloak your words in riddles.
We will tie these belts around our necks and hang ourselves from your altars.
Your words lacerate my heart.
Now you understand, for we have helped you see clearly.
Yes, and you have left me to wrestle with questions that have no easy answers. In every direction, I see a flood of troubles rushing this way. A wave of utter destruction crashing upon a bottomless sea of suffering impossible to avoid or even traverse. There is no safe harbor or sanctuary from this storm, for if I do not welcome you into the city and protect you from danger, or as your sacred right, then you will bring pollution upon this land by committing unspeakable acts. But if I stand here before the city walls and wage war against your cousins, the sons of Aegyptus, it will also come at a great cost. For the earth will be stained with the blood of our own men, fighting on behalf of foreigners. I fear the anger of Zeus, protector of beggars and suppliants, most of all, as is only right, for he demands reverence from us mortals. I ask that you and your children go gather these branches quickly and place them on the altars within the city, so the people will see that you have come as suppliants seeking asylum and will not speak critically of me, for those in power always make easy targets. It is possible that some of our citizens will be moved to compassion by your actions and will rise up against this rowdy group of men and will treat you all with kindness, as it is easier to feel sympathy for the weak.
We are incredibly grateful and moved to have found such a passionate advocate. But please, send some of your men as escorts and guides, so I may find the altars and shrines of the gods that watch over your homes while moving safely through the city. We do not look like we come from this land. Be careful that in your overconfidence you do not precipitate my death for men have killed friends without knowing who they are.
Accompany this stranger into the city and show him the shrines and sacred temples. Do not speak to those you meet along the way as you lead this man who sailed across the sea to be a suppliant at our altars.
You spoke. He obeyed.
And now he is gone.
But what about us?
What should we do?
And what can you offer us?
Take your suppliant branches, which signal your distress, and set them down beside you.
We will place them down here, just as you said.
Now come down from that hill and stand over there where the ground is leveled.
But will we still be safe if the ground is not holy?
We will not allow the birds of prey to swoop down and attack you.
But what if there are poisoned snakes in the grass?
You speak as if threatened, but my words were meant to soothe you.
We are shaken and afraid and do not feel safe.
This should not come as a shock.
Fear begets more fear if left unchecked.
We would be far less fearful if you reassured us with actions.
As well as words.
Fair enough. You will not be alone here for long. Your father will return soon. I will go gather the citizens in the city and attempt to appeal to their better natures and put them in a friendly mood. And I will instruct your father what to say and how to best say it to these men to elicit their sympathy. You should stay here and pray to the gods of this city to fulfill your desires while I go make the case on your behalf. Let us hope my arguments persuade them and fortune smiles upon us all today.
Take courage, my children, and be of good cheer, for the citizens of this city have voted in our favor, delivering their ruling with full authority after a public debate.
Dear Father,
welcome, messenger.
We salute you
for returning with
such promising news.
But tell us what the people have decided.
What did the majority declare with their votes?
The Argives did not flinch, but took action so quickly that it lifted my spirits and made this gray-haired man feel young again. The air was filled with right hands as far as I could see, and they all shot up in unison, and with a full vote of the gathered assembly, the motion became law. We are free to settle in this city. No one may seize us or take us away from this place as hostages or captives. The Argives have pledged to protect us from any man who tries to rob or capture us. And should our enemies try to take us by violent force, any man who holds land and refuses to help rescue the suppliants will forfeit their property and be banished. This is what the king of the Pelasgians said on our behalf, made all the more persuasive when he warned them that the wrath of Zeus, protector of suppliants, would descend upon the city and never relent should they violate their sacred duty to protect us. He spoke of a double curse, for we are foreigners who are also from this country. And hearing those words spoken so passionately and forcefully by Pelasgus, the people of Argos did not even bother to wait for the herald to call for a vote, but raised up their hands to affirm what must be done. The king made the case with great eloquence and precision, but it was Zeus in the end who brought this all to fruition.
come, let us say a prayer for the Argives, blessing them in turn for blessing us.
May Zeus, God of strangers, hear the songs of thanks from the lips of strangers, and help us reach our destination.
I applaud your desire to pray, my children. It is prudent to pray at moments like this, but please do not be fearful or overwhelmed by the sudden and troubling things your father is about to say. From here, on this high shrine for suppliants, looking out over the sea. I can see the ship. There is no way I could miss it. The cut of the sails, the bend of the boards, the eyes on the front of the prow, always looking forward, scanning the waters ahead. A formidable vessel that obeys the guiding rudder in the stern far too skillfully for those who try to pursue her. I can also see the men. It is unmistakably them, their dark-skinned limbs exposed by white clothes. The rest of the ships are plainly in view, a full fleet that has come to assist them. The lead ship now approaches the shore with her sails furled and men pulling oars through the surf. You must face this situation calmly and with self-control, never forgetting the gods on this hill. I will go find our friends and bring back an army of men ready to stand by our side and make our case. A messenger may come, eager to seize you and take you all back to ships, but he will not succeed. Have no fear. I will return with help. If it takes too long, I suggest you all seek refuge on these altars. You must summon all of your courage and remember that those who disrespect the gods will always be punished in the end.
We are afraid, Father.
How can we not be afraid?
The ships arrive so quickly.
They will be here any minute.
We are scared, Father, and trembling with fear. For what if our long voyage here was all for nothing?
Summon your courage, my children. Since the Argives voted so swiftly to defend us, I know they will arrive in time to fight.
The son of Egyptus have come for blood, in dark timbered ships with an army of heartless men.
We tried to outrun their rage, but it has overtaken us.
Yes, but they will find soon. They will soon find an army of battle-hardened men awaiting them on these shores.
Do not leave us here. We beg you, Father.
These men are ruthless and like scavengers searching for carrion.
They will not hesitate to snatch us from these altars.
All the more reason the gods will be on our side, my children. Let these men desecrate the temples and then pay with their lives.
Father, these men are not afraid of tridents
or any other sacred symbols.
These objects will not stop them from putting their hands upon us.
Nor will the thought of divine retribution.
Possessed by an unholy rage, they are like shameless dogs.
With no reverence for the gods.
Yes, but as it is said, dogs can be broken by wolves.
They are not men.
They are savage animals with an unchecked appetites of wild beasts.
We must protect ourselves as best as we can.
A fleet of ships is always slow to set sail and to anchor, for it takes some time to secure the cables which must be brought ashore, especially when arriving on the coast that has no harbor. The captains will not give the order for their forces to move ashore until their ships are moored to the mainland. I know you are afraid, but remember this. I will return as soon as I have secured reinforcements. The city will not reject this messenger. He may be old, but in his heart and his tongue, he is still young and nimble.
Oh no! No!
No!
Here on the land, my captor from the sea has finally arrived to capture me!
Children of Danaus, follow me to safety upon the sacred altars.
These savage beasts pursue us on the land and the sea.
May the gods of the earth protect us.
Come down from there immediately, or we shall pull you down by your hair, ripping it out by the roots, and then beat you senseless on the ground with these branches until you stop groaning. Or we will sever your heads with our swords, sending rivers of blood flowing out to the ocean. Come down here now. Start making your way to the ship.
If only you had died at sea.
Choked upon waves and brine.
That would have silenced your pride.
Stop shrieking and whining and come down from those shrines. I have no respect for refugees. Without city or home, the ship is waiting to take you back to the country from which you came.
Never again may we see our homeland!
Argos is now our home, old man, from which our ancient ancestor came.
Get down from there now! That is an order! Do not make me come up there and bring you down myself, or I assure you, you will wish you had come down on your own.
May you die the worst kind of death at sea, driven of course by furious winds.
Battered by merciless waves, your ship splintered to bits by sandy shoals, and swallowed whole by the bottomless abyss.
Keep screaming and wailing and calling out to the gods for assistance. You shall never escape our ship.
May the mighty ocean rise up and silence your arrogant speech.
Come now, or I will come up there and get you.
Father, we are afraid, for the sacred altars seem to offer us no protection.
Like a spider, he is climbing up the side of this hill.
To haul us out to sea!
Mother Earth!
Turn him away before he reaches us here at the top.
Father Zeus, save us!
I am not afraid of these Argive gods, for they did not raise me. They will not care for me in my old age.
Like some deadly snake, he is moving in for the kill.
Opening his sharp jaws to strike my foot.
If you refuse to come quietly, then I will have no choice but to rip off your robes.
All is lost.
King of Argos, where are you now?
When we need you.
The only kings that you will ever know are the sons of Aeschylus.
Leaders of the city, hear our cries.
Stop these men from visiting us with violence.
You there! Laying hands on those seeking shelter at our altars. Tell me, what has possessed you to disrespect this city and our citizens? Perhaps you thought that you had come to a country populated by women? Well, this was a grave mistake. Now that you see the Argive army standing here before you, I am sure that you understand the error of your thinking.
Where have I been wrong or done anything that is not my right?
First of all, as a foreigner, you have not shown respect, proper respect to this city.
Tell me this. How is it disrespectful to claim what is mine?
To what authority did you appeal for permission to enter our land and take something from it?
Hermes, the sea. Who stole what's rightfully belongs to them. The god of war does not question witnesses, or hear oral arguments, or does he accept silver to settle disputes. Before all is done, many of your men will have lost their lives in battle.
You shall soon learn my name in due time, but for now, there is no need to share it. As for these people, feel free to take them back to your ship. That is, if you can convince them with righteous, irrefutable arguments to go of their own free will. Otherwise, the people of Argos have voted by unanimous decree to never allow them to be taken from this city against their will by force. This is not negotiable. Our citizens have spoken. Though it has not yet been written on stone tablets or sealed in creases of books, you will hear it clearly if you listen to the free speech of our people, who are resolved to see this through to the end. Go now and get out of my sight as quickly as possible.
It seems to me you wish to start a war. May the power and the victory reside with the men.
Yes, with the men of this city, whom you will soon come to know in combat. Suppliants, you must summon all your courage and travel past the defensive walls, through heavy fortifications, past bunkers and high towers ringing the city until you reach the safety of our homes, where you may stay with us for as long as you like as the honored guests of our people. Or if you would prefer to live on your own, that can be arranged. Simply tell us what would make you most comfortable. We, the people of Argos, are now your protectors. Why wait for others with higher authority? It is time now to come down from the hill.
Noble King Pelasgus, we are humbled by your kindness and only wish to fill this land with our blessings.
But please, send our father Danaus,
our leader and guide,
to accompany us through the city.
Above all others, we defer to his judgment about where we should live and in which homes.
For strangers entering a new country are never truly welcome.
People are always ready to blame those who speak in foreign tongues for all of their problems.
For your attention. I want to thank our amazing chorus of Ukrainian students. Let's give them another huge round of applause. And I'd love to thank our three actors, Keith David, Anthony Edwards, and Tate Donovan, for their contributions tonight. We're going to transition to our discussion now. I'm going to ask our actors to go take their seats in the audience. I'd like to ask our panelists to come up to the stage and take their seats on the stage. And as this transition is happening, I just want to plant the first seed of the first question we're going to ask you as an audience during a discussion that's about to follow. And I'd love for you to think about this question as the panelists are speaking, these panelists and individuals who've experienced war firsthand, who are going to be responding in just a couple minutes from their hearts and their guts to what they heard and saw in this ancient play that resonated and spoke to their experiences across time. So here's the question we've asked other audiences across the country and the world. We'd love to ask you here in the stadium and those of you who are watching on Zoom. Now that you've seen these actors going for broke, trying to make sense of this ancient play across time with minimal rehearsal, these Ukrainian students rehearsing on Zoom and then in person just a couple of times before we got up here to do it. And you know the play was written 2,500 years ago and performed in ancient Athens for as many as 17,000 people sitting in a giant amphitheater like this in a century in which they saw nearly 80 years of war. What spoke to you tonight in this play? What resonated with you as you heard it tonight? What cut across time and culture? What was true? And we're going to return to that question in a few seconds, but we'll be looking for folks in the audience to come back. I'll repeat it in a few seconds, to raise their hands and to jump into the conversation. But in the interim, we're going to hear from our amazing panelists who I've already met backstage, and we're so excited to have you hear from them tonight. I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves so you can hear from them who they are and as it pertains to what they have to say. And I'm going to turn things over to them, but I want to thank all of them for agreeing to join us tonight. I usually look to see who's making the best eye contact, to see who goes first. So you, sir, Arif, are going to be first for your amazing eye contact with me. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and launching directly into what spoke to you tonight, what resonated with you. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much. This is working. My name is Arif Dostiar. I'm from Afghanistan, a country where I feel locked out of. and the country that I love. That's where I grew up, and I've seen all the transitions. Unfortunately, last year I was away when the government fell, and I am here with you tonight, with my family here. Unlike the happy conclusion of this play tonight, the reality in my country is a lot more different. I heard maybe 3 phrases that I noted down that I would like to share with you. The first one was, this is an hour of need. 2.5 million Afghans are refugees right now in our neighborhood. That's the registered number. Perhaps as many unregistered people are there as well. Since last year, Afghans were the largest group of suppliants, if you will, in Greece and across Europe, from among all the countries. Over 100,000 people only came to the US since last year, seeking refuge. The second thing I heard in the play was, we call on gods above and the vengeful below, something like that, that the lines went. And it feels like that describes the situation of our people inside Afghanistan. That's how they feel. We have a saying that goes like, the sky is too high, the earth is too rigid. That's how they feel, caught up, not knowing what to do and how to make it to the next day. Only on September 30th, a school, an educational center was targeted, was bombed. Over 100 chairs are now occupying empty chairs, that education center. That's how the people feel there. The last line is a phrase actually that caught my attention, was the honorablest of evils. This is how they see when they move away from their homes, leaving their culture, family, friends, everything behind. It's not a choice that they make. They're pushed. Nothing pulls them, but they're pushed by circumstances. Another saying that resonates with this in the play, in my culture, is, they say, we are caught in between 2 stones. Persecution on the one hand, rejection on the other hand. And so I would like to end with a call for action. There are a lot of Afghans right now in holding centers, such as in the United Arab Emirates and Qatar and in Europe as well, not knowing what their fate looks like. We need to get them to their final destinations as soon as possible. There's an Afghan Adjustment Act in Congress right now waiting to be passed, so that for these 100,000 people who have come here in the United States, paves the way for permanent residency here. We need to get that passed. And lastly, I want to thank the University of Notre Dame for creating a platform so we can address the future and the root causes of this tragedy in my homeland. And so I'm really grateful here. I think that these are the things, the play and the things I shared, is how I connect to all of you and to my fellow panelists. I'm really grateful to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Araf. Thank you so much for being first. Oh, he has a mic too. I really appreciate you broadening the conversation of speaking of your culture and your country, and also it complicates the conversation. This narrative on stage ends with a somewhat happy ending, and I hear you saying the ending is not resolved. It's not even, we're not even the midway point. There still needs to be a lot of action to be taken. And I think, and that by speaking of the struggles of Afghan refugees, we're broadening what we're talking about in the Suppliants conversation well beyond Ukraine, but also making connections of solidarity between people who have also experienced being trapped between those 2 things you described. So I really appreciate you doing that. Jean-Marc, you are next. Thank you so much. Please.
Thank you so much, Brian, for this opportunity. First of all, my prayers and thoughts are with the Ukrainian people as they go through difficult times as we speak. This is really difficult for Ukraine right now. Then the situation, the play, the tragedy that we watch, 2,500 years ago before Christ. And it seems to me that those events are happening right now. This is relevant for Ukraine, but also relevant for Burkina Faso, where I'm from. My name is John Mark Tiendrebeogo. I'm from Burkina Faso in West Africa. I'm here at Notre Dame studying international peace studies. So when I was watching the tragedy, there's particularly three lines that kind of caught my attention, that struck me. The first one is kindred enemies that prey upon their own species, polluting their race with the blood of other birds, an unholy act. How can a bird be pure if it preys on one of its own? This line speaks directly to what's happening in Burkina Faso right now, because we have an enemy in Burkina Faso and also in the Sahel region as a whole. And this enemy are jihadist, extremist group, terrorist group affiliated with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. As we speak right now in Burkina Faso, we have 2 million internal displaced people, including women and children, who actually suffer the full force of violence. And right now, if nothing is done to stem the problem in Burkina Faso, and also in the Sahel region as a whole, I think we're going to have a tragedy. Another thing is the dignity of those people, the displaced people. It's really important that we see them as human beings. Another line that kind of struck me is, we're not criminals sent into exile, publicly banished for spilling blood, but refugees seeking asylum from violence. I think for me, it's there's a need for us to accept refugees as human beings and to tolerate them, to accept them, and to care for them. And to finish, I also want to kind of call for attention. I know Ukraine is getting more attention, but then we need attention to other conflicts in the world. Like Arif talked about Afghanistan. I'm talking about Burkina Faso in the Sahel. And we need that kind of attention in the world. And I call upon people to look, for ways to help, other parts of the world, including the Sahel region of West Africa. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Jean-Marc. Thank you. And thank you for those readings of the lines. I now see that we need to have you in the next production, because those were very forceful and excellent. But this line, that we are not criminals set into exile for having done something wrong, this I think speaks exactly to the dehumanization of the people who have been displaced as a strategy for not necessarily seeing their humanity, not helping them, not sacrificing on their behalf because they're treated as subhuman. And which countries and which conflicts and which people get our attention and get the attention of the Western world, and why? These are questions we're here to interrogate as well, and I appreciate you bringing them so forcefully into the room. One of the challenges of tragedy is it opens our eyes to all the things that are around us all the time that we don't allow ourselves to see, because we would be overwhelmed if we let it all in. But it is our moral responsibility to see it and name it and acknowledge it the way you have tonight. So thank you so much. Ma'am, over to you. You're next. Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you for having me here. My name is Maria Fernanda Zamora. I'm a sophomore year student. I'm an activist and opinion writer from Managua, Nicaragua. But really, I am just a 19-year-old girl who is currently welcome back home for expressing my opinions and simply advocating for education, for human rights, for rights of speech and press. One of the lines that more resonated to me, it was one of the first ones that said, "We are not criminals, we are simply refugees." And people seeking asylum in other countries are many times seen as criminals attempting to take away the opportunities of citizens. But simply we do it sometimes as the last resource we have. No one seeks asylum with joy. And I speak for experience, like someone who left their country behind, everything they love, their family, their culture, their language, and trying to survive somewhere else, trying to seek for opportunities of growth, opportunities to come back to your country and be part of the change you want to see.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being our third. I really appreciate it. Very powerful. We had someone in the audience from Nicaragua last time we did this performance on Zoom in July, and it was clear that when she was speaking, the things she was saying were dangerous to say in a public space on Zoom. And the stakes of that, the stakes of everything that have been talked about so far, match the stakes of the play, so that tragedy is no longer this removed thing, but it's actually a kind of kitchen sink realism for people who've lived these experiences, who've spoken out and know that words can have life and death significance when they're said. And so I appreciate your courage and your being here tonight. Thank you so much for what you've given us. Christina, you are next.
Hi all. My name is Christina. I am from Ukraine. Back home, I am a medical doctor and clinical psychologist, and with this outrage of war, we are running psychological help for internally displaced people, refugees, soldiers, doctors, teachers, and all other who needs help. And I'm extremely thankful to be here and to be able to speak, because a lot of people don't have this luxury. Though if you ask any of Ukrainians here, it's not the easiest thing to be away from your home. While playing this tragedy, it also struck me how similar the events are. Whatever happens to us will have consequences. Thank you all for being here, for not closing your eyes, turning away from all the suffering in the play, in the stories of all us sitting here in front of you. And whatever you do matters, whatever you say matters, spreading the word, shedding the light, and the consequences are important for all of the countries we are representing here. Another part from the play, by the way, if you thought that the ending was happy, well, it's not. And the fight didn't went really well for Erguyev's army. But it doesn't mean they didn't have to try and protect people, which asks courage.
Thank you so much, Christina. I really, really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you also bringing into the conversation that this is not where the story ends. It's just the beginning of a trilogy of plays. And what happens next is that Palaskis goes to war on behalf of the suppliants, and he dies in combat. So there are consequences to making these choices, but there are consequences to indecision as well, and there's consequences to ignoring these choices. And I like what you said about responsibility to try, even if the consequences mean death, no matter what you decide. And it means a lot to have you say that at this moment in the conflict in your country right now. I appreciate it very much. And for your performance tonight, thank you so much. Ma'am, over to you. You are second to last.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Hassana Begets. I'm from Bosnia. I moved here 2000 in January when it was big snow. I thought I'm escaping my country with a lot of snow and war and everything, but came here and same. At least if I move south somewhere, then it will be different, but it's okay. I'm happy here and I like it. I work for Notre Dame almost 10 years so far. I really want to appreciate all help. When I moved to the country and in all jobs that I had, this is my one currently, not knowing English, not having family here, not having money, it was not easy. But I listened this play and lots of lines kind of connect with me. One of them say, we are not criminals. And then some of them are like, move to other country, it's not easy, but, and I understand country that you go through, it's not easy for those people to accept you either. Not knowing you and letting you in your house, it's not easy for those countries either. And have all the pressure, expenses, and supporting those people, it's big responsibility. But, I was kind of lucky. I did not have much problems when I moved here. And another line that say, throwing men from a boat, kind of connected me with some of my personal experiences through the war. Like you might don't know, but Bosnia was war from 1992 to late 1995. We had to move from place to places, and like in line that say throwing people from the boat, we had experienced the other side pulling people from the buses, and kind of they never returned back to their families. What else? It says, defend us from enemies, the other line that connected to me is, we all need help. And like if we don't help refugees and people that struggle, who's going to help? Lots of people need to be defended from the enemies. And if we don't all get together and help, it don't matter what country, what kind of war, a lot of innocent people are struggling. I have a lot of lines that I don't know.
I can see that.
Okay. Let's see the next one. Like one that I like, the king said, I won't do anything without my people. That reminds me how hard it is to get approved to move to that country. It's like for me, it took me a year and a half to get approved to move. But for some people, maybe they never get second chance, which I appreciate that I had this chance to come here, and I like it. Even I have family in Bosnia, and I have my husband here and my girls, it's most important, and I'm so appreciated for my husband's help and support, and everybody else at work, at school, anywhere I go, in neighborhood, I never felt any different than everybody else. Going back to war, it was not easy. When I see in audience a lot of young people, it connects me too with the audience. When war started, it was about me having my 18th birthday. But back in my country, 18th birthday is like 21st birthday here. You celebrate, you can wait for that birthday. Few weeks before my birthday, we had to leave my home and hide in the woods. That way I don't even remember my 18th birthday. But now I'm celebrating my 40-some, 50 coming soon, and I'm happy I'm alive.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
all.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And this connects to something Christina said a second ago. I really appreciate, we ended the play a little early, but the last lines of the play, which we didn't perform, are about the chorus's anxiety. They're being brought across the border now. They're being protected, but they're talking about, well, what's going to happen to us now that we're going inside this country? And they're not given citizenship. They're given a kind of foreign national status. You can stay here as long as you like, but you don't necessarily have the same rights as the people inside this country. And that's the other part of the drama that continues, that doesn't end. It's not necessarily a happy ending, although I appreciate all the great things that you were celebrating, including I, too, in my 40s, approaching 50s, and I celebrate that with you. But the drama doesn't end when you cross the border. In some ways, it begins when you cross the border. So I really appreciate you bringing that into the
Thank
space.
you. Yeah, yes, you're right. It never ends. Leaving your family, parents, you always feel like connected to your country, and that's where you're born and you grow up. It's never easy. And I do want to have everybody who didn't go through the experience to try to understand, and for refugee, it's not their choices that they want to leave their country and move to somewhere else. If you think that way, they did not come just because they wanted to leave their country. They needed help, and we need to help them, everybody.
Thank you so much. Well, I really appreciate everything that's been said so far. Lynn, you've been waiting patiently. Last but not least, over to you, sir.
Good evening, everybody. A little bit chilly up here, so my hand kind of shaking.
Bring you a jacket. Yeah, exactly.
So my name is Lynn Tran. I am originally from Vietnam. So if you know a little bit about Vietnam, you know a story about Vietnamese boat people, and I'm one of million. I crossed a corner of Pacific Ocean, spent 10 days in the ocean without food and water, and up in a small island, not even on a map, in Malaysia called Pulau Bidong. I spent 4 years there. Finally approved, come to the United States on 1990. Just like Hasina and many other refugee camps, I didn't speak English, but I have made my determination. This is the home that I come and look for. I learn and I grow with it. So I earned my master's degree last May. So thank you. I mean, there are many things resonate me in the play. But the very first one in the opening, it says that we are refugees and from across the ocean. And that exactly where I came from. That feel with me. It's like Hasana said, it's not easy to leave your home. But when you have to make that choice because you have no other option. The Vietnam War is far behind us, and many of the young did not even know much about the story of the Vietnam War anymore. The Vietnam War was one of the very tragic, that it left more than 68,000 Americans and allies sacrificed for that freedom for my former country. And in 1975, when the country fallen into communists, I left my home, left everything behind, and finally end up in America. It was a blessing. So another part in the play that, close to the end that resonated with me is that when he said he has no respect for refugee, and I will take you back to where you came from. It actually bring me right back to the incident that I had in the ocean the very last time when I escaped Vietnam. And so, for information, I tried to escape Vietnam 24 times. Wow. And the last time I successfully came, got it through. But the one before that, I approached one of the big boats in the ocean, and I believe we were in the international water. So we went there to seek for help, and it turned out it was a Russian boat. At that time, it was not just Russia; it was a Soviet Union They brought a bride back to Vietnam, and I ended up in prison. War doesn't matter where you go, doesn't matter what country you are, doesn't matter what color skin you are. War doesn't care. And it infected everybody. It hurt everybody. For me, when I look back to all the things that I spent through on my childhood and the journey almost impossible to America, I always tell myself one thing, that war left a lot of scar on us. But the scar only tell the world where we have been. And I will not allow it to dictate the future where I am going. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is no small thing to get in front of any community and make such personal connections after a reading like this, especially your own community. I want to thank you for your candor, for your courage, for getting the conversation started, for the connections you made, for the stories you shared, which are all unforgettable and as powerful, more powerful than the play. You are the sort of second chorus of our performance tonight. And now you have amplified the play and you've connected it across space and time to so many other conflicts. And we're just grateful for you. I want to say thank you. And I want to give these amazing panelists, before we come out to our audience discussion, a really big round of applause for your contributions. And now we're going to shift gears to our audience discussion. We have some amazing people queued up in Ukraine who are waiting to speak. Before we go to them, we want to come out to our audience here. And I'm going to mention to you again, if I'm going to have my back to you, but not out of disrespect. And if you have anything you want to say, you have live mics like the voice of God. You can come back into, or the voice of Keith David. You can come back into the conversation anytime you like by simply saying, hey, Brian, and we'll weave you back into the conversation. But because we have these incredible young people and members of the community here with us, here's the question again. In spite of the distance of culture and time, and if you're in the Zoom audience, all you have to do is raise your hand. And if you're in this audience, all you have to do is raise your hand, and somehow you'll end up in the conversation with either a mic or on the screen. In spite of the distance of culture and time, in spite of everything that separates us from the ancient Greeks who performed this play 2,500 years ago, what spoke to you tonight, what resonated with you, what touched you, what was true? And I see we have a hand back here. We'll go right over there. Yes, sir, over to you.
I'd like to thank the panelists as well as the actors. It's just been a stunning evening. My biggest takeaway from this is 2,500 years ago, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And I don't mean to be so cynical about that, but when I listen to your stories, first of all, the panelists, there's one common bond among you, and that common bond is courage. 6 of you are sitting up there, and each one of you has an amazing story. I could sit and listen to each one of you for hours. But the bottom line is that each one of you has an amazing amount of courage that never enters the discussion when you hear about the borders. And here you are sitting in the Notre Dame football stadium telling your story in a very condensed format. It's amazing. It's truly amazing. Just a couple of observations from the play and from your condensed stories. Language. I absolutely applaud each one of you for your language. Because for you to make sense to us, you have to use a language that you weren't born speaking. So, for the actors, one of the things that really struck me, and this again ties in with that idea that nothing has changed. When the king was talking to the chorus, you know, it was almost as if he was trying to get their credentials, find out, where they came from, who they are, before he could make a decision. That's not much different today.
Yeah.
And then you've got this word of mouth that scares the hell out of the chorus, because there's nothing concrete. Final observation, and then I would love to hear from the panelists. What that play ultimately struck home to me was the idea that government, religion, those are the two places that refugees turn to. They're both impotent in this, in the play that we saw. And I guess I'd like to ask the panelists, what were your hopes when you were coming to America, in terms of having to, all of you were fleeing war, but what were your hopes you're starting anew, right?
So I'm going to let that question float for a second, and I'd love for you all to think about that and weave it into your response in a few seconds. But we have a lot of people who are waiting to speak. I see a hand here, and there's a hand here. You, sir, I swear he's not a plant, first of all. So thank you so much for all of your questions and enthusiasm about the play and making these connections across time. I see a microphone here. We're going to go to a couple more people. Not in any way to cut you short, sir, and not to cut your responses short, but we want to get to a few more people before we hear from you all again. Sir, you've been waiting for some time. Right over to you. Go ahead.
Hi. My name is Roland. I'm an MGA student. One thing struck me about the play was when the king said, "You look like Libyans, and we do not accept refugees that are not from our own people." And I just wanted to voice out my fellow MGA students who are not represented in this panel, who come from countries that have been struck by war for at least a decade, like Syria, like people who come from Kashmir, whose pains and sufferings are not represented in this panel as well. There are people from Yemen who suffered from countless atrocities and who have also not been represented here. That's all I wanted to say, that not everyone is represented well, and I wanted to voice out them somehow.
Thank you for naming. Thank you so much for naming that. Thank you for acknowledging those other peoples and cultures who've also experienced war. I really appreciate that. I think by saying those words, we're not. The chorus in this play is 50 people. I think if we had a panel of 50 people, we wouldn't have represented all of the nations in the planet and the world that would need to be represented. But I appreciate you stepping up and acknowledging those connections very much. Looking around to see, you've been waiting here for some time. Over here. Yeah, go right ahead.
So what struck me as relevant from the play to today is a lot of parallels that we could draw. So I was living in Germany when the Afghan government fell and when Ukraine was invaded. And you could see a lot of what the refugees in the play were going through. And you could see, like, how it went well for them, but not for others. So, like in the case of Afghanistan, the United States was working heavily. I'm American, so I was getting American and German news at the time.
Yeah.
So the United States was working heavily to pull Afghan refugees who worked with the United States government out of Afghanistan. But the Germans, the French weren't opening their borders. The Germans were only opening theirs to refugees who could prove German birth, citizenship, blood right, citizenship. similar to the way that the refugees in the play prove that they descended from Argos in some way. And, you know, it also relates to the king of Argos because, you know, Germany and France's, their leaders were similar to him in the way that they wouldn't let anyone in until the people consented or until the people did. And unfortunately, in those circumstances, they didn't.
Thank you so much for raising that and raising those questions around how people in various countries open their borders and what it takes within those countries to manifest the political power to open them. You know, one could, on the one hand, mistake this for a kind of hero narrative about the United States, but I appreciate you also interrogating, well, what do Western powers, what are they willing to sacrifice, and on behalf of whom, as per the last person who spoke and some of the others, what countries, and what does it take? And you know, I think it's a really great thing to bring into the room. We've had free people in this audience speak. We want to connect you with some folks around the world who also would like to speak. And our first person in the audience on Zoom is actually coming to us from Ukraine. Her name is Kira, and she's over to you, Kira. What resonated with you tonight? What spoke to you? What touched you? What was true?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kira Mishcherska, and I'm Ukraine, and I already took part in this project, Suppliants Project, and it was I had so much of warm reactions and feelings because of familiar text. And girls, you're really cool. I really love your acting and how you're saying the words. It has a lot of meaning. And also I memorized phrase of Christina when she was talking about after the play, that it's really hard for her to live in another country, not in Ukraine, but we're all together. Even if we are in a different countries, we're still together. And I would really like to hug you all right now, because I don't even have so much words to explain all of my emotions, but I really love this play and I really love the actors. You are the best, so thank you all for this. Like, I love you all, really, and Slava Ukraini.
Thank you so much, Kira. Thank you so much. Kira's 12 years old. She stayed up till 3 in the morning in Ukraine to be part of this conversation with you here at Notre Dame tonight. She acted in the first performance of the Suppliants Project Ukraine, which you can find on YouTube later and watch in its entirety if you didn't get enough Greek tragedy tonight in the stadium. But Kira was one of our stars the last time, and we're grateful that she came in from Ukraine. Our next speaker on Zoom is Daniela. Over to you, Daniela. What resonated with you tonight? What spoke to you? What touched you? What was true?
Boa noite, as everyone says in Portugal, because like I'm Ukrainian who is now a refugee, living in Portugal for like half of a year. Time flies and I'm so amazed. And first of all, I want to thank you all for this, like thanks to the all organizers and to the actors and so on. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous if something starts about the audience and so on, but still. After thanking you all, I want to say it's so important to bring it up, like all the feelings and all the experiences we have, and we have like, I'm surprised, like I'm 19 years old and I'm so surprised of how big world is and how how similar in some ways it is, like how similar situations we experience at the same time all over the world. And I think that it's very important to do what we are capable to do. You're doing your job, like as I said, bringing it all to the world with this amazing event, international event, which is very impressive and still important. And I study architecture, and this is what, I don't know, helps me in some ways. I mean that starting studying architecture, I didn't know what is the purpose, and I wanted to quit before the war started. But now I see the reason, and now I see the power and the inspiration to keep living and continuing doing all the best I can. And sometimes we can do not something which is visible right now, but something which will be important and will be available in the great future, in the soon future, I believe. And thank you.
We really, really appreciate it. It's such a powerful thing. I know you're up late too, that to hear young people, especially those connected to the conflicts that we're here to discuss from other parts of the world, responding so personally and powerfully. We have one last person in our Zoom audience who's raised their hand now, and then we're going to go to the bleachers next because we've ignored our lovely section over there. So we see someone over there has their hand up. But before that, we're going to go to Oksana. Oksana is joining us on Zoom. Over to you, Oksana. What resonated with you? What spoke to you tonight? What touched you? What was true?
Hello, everybody, and thank you. I was also part of the early productions and part of these events. And this time it struck me, and I think about Theater of War mission, that in this play, while the kings and the leaders are powerful and we come to them as suppliants or ask for help, that the heroes are all of us. And the idea of continually saying, but we are the city, you are the city. And as a Ukrainian immigrant here in the United States, I know so many people in Ukraine, but also have worked with so many in my line of work, refugees and others who are regular, ordinary citizens doing extraordinary work, raising their voices, talking about their experiences bravely, like the panel today. And it's their voices that I think shake us up. And so I just wanted to give shout out to all the regular people, heroes of that are not visible to us in some ways, but we're hearing them and continually reminding ourselves, we are the city. We have to get engaged and involved and respond to all wars so that the world does not have such suffering and continue. So thank you so much. And Slava Ukraini. Дякую.
Thank you so much, Oksana. Thank you. I really share those sentiments. I appreciate what you said about Theater of War Productions. If anything, we do a Greek tragedy with a Greek chorus, and this tonight was Ukrainians, and then we have this chorus that emerges of other people from other cultures and people from other lands, and the chorus becomes the main event, the chorus of people all around the world who are the people, who are the city, who wield a political power as a group together. We have a hand up in the bleachers, and I think it's over there. Yes, over to you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Colonel Rob Keane. I am a retired Air Force officer. My parents both served in World War II, which made me a student of that war. My own wars in my 30-year career were Vietnam, The Cold War, believe it or not, it created refugees and Desert Storm, and I watched Afghanistan, and now I'm watching Ukraine. But I can tell you, in all those years of experience, my general reaction to the play was 2,500 years and nothing's changed. Because the world still has millions of refugees, and I would submit that refugees are principally caused by tyrants. And it was ever thus. We have the same thing today. I would submit to you that Ukraine is the start of World War III. Just hearken back to the late 30s and Adolf Hitler. And so if we are going to stop people having to flee their homelands because of violence and war, we've got to stop tyrants. So here's the question. How do you stop a tyrant like Vladimir Putin? Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It's wonderful to have a veteran's perspective in the discussion. Appreciate you bringing your years of experience into the conversation and really sharpening the conversation of at what cost. And that's at the center of this play as well. He says, it seems to me you wish to start a war when the suppliants arrive. Of course, they don't wish to start a war. They wish for peace, but they wish to be protected. And this king knows that the consequences of protecting them and doing the right thing will inevitably be war. And I appreciate someone who's been to war speaking from your perspective about the cost of that decision, but also about the moral obligation that we have to protect those, especially those under tyranny. I thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Maxime is with us now on Zoom, and we're going to go back to Zoom to hear from Maxime, and then we'll come back out to someone over here in the audience. I see the hand over there. But Maxime, over to you on Zoom. What resonated with you tonight? What do you want to say to the folks here at Notre Dame?
Well, I am Maxim. I'm from Ukraine. Good evening to all of you. And actually, as a lot of Ukrainians, I am not at home. And my life has changed absolutely. All my plans have been destroyed. I had to graduate from the high school in Ukraine, but the war started and everything was destroyed and ruined. In this play, there is a feeling of the feelings of suppliants actually are very well known to me. I feel them, and actually I love the following lines where they say that we are aliens in the countries which host us and which accept us. On the one hand, it seems there is nothing bad about these words, nothing terrible about these words, because I'm absolutely sure that the majority of the Ukrainians who fled are going to come back to their homeland. And this is a very positive thing for the future of the country, because some of the Ukrainians who live now outside Ukraine will get the experience of those countries, and they will understand the mistakes which were made by our society in our country. And all this will give an opportunity to improve the future of my country and to improve the life of Ukrainians and maybe to improve the life of the rest of the world. So thank you very much for giving me the floor and an opportunity to speak up, and glory to Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Maxime. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it, for staying up late, for being with us. Lynn, we'll go over to Lynn next up on the stage, and then we'll come over there. Wait 1 second, ma'am, over there. Lynn, please.
Thank you. I just want to give a few minutes to respond to the gentleman that asked the very first questions about, when refugees, just as ourselves, as the panelists up here, what do we want, what do we seek when we come to the United States, when we come to America? And I think all of us should agree in one thing, that we come to America because freedom. And freedom is everything. Freedom to live a normal life, freedom to have an education, freedom to build a family, freedom to have a nice neighbor, to have a backyard grill, to have a barbecue on the side. Freedom to live a life of a human being. That's what we really want for. And we are blessed. We can have it here. But I hope in the future that what we have here in America will one day spread around the world. So every other country, every small nation, every place that are suffering war and suffering of lack of human rights will share the privilege that we have here in our homeland. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate you responding to that question, and anyone else who'd like to at any point can or jump into the conversation with the questions that are being offered now. But over to you. Thank you for your patience, ma'am. You had your hand up.
Hello. There were a couple of things about the play, a couple lines that stood out to me. The first one was, I don't remember it verbatim, this is the first time I've heard this play, but it was about, it said, those who speak in foreign tongues are often blamed for all of the nation's problems. And I'm just a normal American. I've been born and raised here, and I know that I'm very lucky, but I have a good friend who's from Mexico, and she came here as a little girl, barely remembers it. Her family came here to keep her safe. There wasn't a war, but it wasn't a safe place for children to grow up and play outside on the streets. And she talks about how she'll be treated normally because she's light enough to just pass for white, pass for a normal American, but then she'll start speaking in Spanish with her family, and then people will treat her differently, and watch her she walks in the stores, in case she's going to steal something. And the other line from the play was about how at the very beginning the father was warning the girls, you have to seem weak, you have to be non-threatening. And these are people who shouldn't have to bend over backwards to speak perfect English or seem non-threatening. The people, if you're here, you're probably not the people who need to hear this, but I wish people could be a little more empathetic, and I thank everyone who works hard to welcome refugees, and my heart aches for those in this situation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It takes courage to get up and stand in this audience and then see yourself on a giant screen and then try to navigate that while making a point. Even I am having trouble right now. It's incredible to hear you speak. And I speak so earnestly about your own concerns and your own empathy. The play ends with that line, people are always ready to blame those who speak in foreign tongues for all of their problems. And I appreciate you bringing that line into the conversation because it's a provocation. We need to interrogate why that may be true, and if it's true, how can we change it? And is it about language? Is it about appearance? Is it about culture? In a country like ours, where we should be embracing all cultures as part of the, as you say, normal American identity, as part of this heterogeneous group of people that are all trying to make the best of this experiment that we're part of. We have someone on Zoom that we're going to go to next, and then we'll come right over to you. Please be patient for 1 second. But we have Noor on Zoom, and Noor, I know you've been waiting patiently. So we're going to go over to you, Noor. What spoke to you tonight? What resonated with you?
Hello, okay. Hello, Brian. Hello, everyone.
Noor, can you
okay, can I be heard? Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. A lot resonated with me with the play. First, I myself am not a refugee, but my parents were, And I was lucky enough that by the time my parents were by the time I was born, my parents were refugees for 20 years. And by the time I was born, I didn't have as much negative experiences as maybe others. One of the things that many other people have mentioned before that I agreed with is that it is very telling that a play from 2,500 years ago is, as cliche as it sounds, just reiterates that history continues to repeat itself. And in particular, when the leader that welcomed the refugees in the play, when he said that when he was making a decision of whether to help them or not, and he's like, it'll affect my people, he said leaders are easy to blame. And in the same sense, refugees are also easy to blame. Both sides of the scale are like two extremes, where when we see countries in despair or refugees coming from a particular country, it's easy to blame the leaders of that country as well as the leaders that are welcoming the refugees for all of our problems. And then as the quote normal people of like the normal kind of citizens who are seeing in the play, it was the people of Argos, I believe, they unanimously decided, yes, we'll help the refugees. And I think especially in today's world, the welcoming of refugees in the very beginning was not so much as easy, but I don't have another word for it. It was easier to welcome refugees and play the part of heroes to refugees. But as tragedies piled on to each other, it was harder and easier to blame refugees because the story was no longer an easy, these are the heroes, these are who they're saving. And when it becomes a story that's so gray, people are filled with anger and frustration, and it's just like it's easier to blame others than it is to do something about the problem. And I would like to conclude with that many people mentioned this before, but I think it's important to know and remember that being a refugee, to leave your home, to risk never being able to return to, we all have fond memories of like those simple memories of just going out to the park or the simple luxuries, I guess. We have childhood memories, and refugees, they're taking the risk that those memories are going to be fading. They're going to be fading. They can no longer really experience the innocence of those memories when they take the risk to even unknown further like persecution of the people welcoming them, or supposed to be welcoming them. That's conclude.
For being with us tonight. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for complicating the conversation and talking about the gray area. And I think this theme of how we sometimes will jump to dehumanize or blame other people rather than solve the problem that's directly in front of us, or acknowledge the humanity of people directly in front of us, is something at the center of this conversation tonight. Thank you for your patience as you've been waiting. Over to you right in the center. Thank you.
My name is Luisana, and I study English. Something that really struck me about the play, I think that's a bit obvious, but was really impactful, was the effect of the voices and the way that they echoed through the stadium. And I think it really drew attention to the sheer vulnerability to being a supplicant and asking for help, and the way that the voices like would ring both in chorus and on their own was really striking. And it made me think, I mean, as you guys were talking so movingly about the intense vulnerability in each of your situations, how difficult it is to strike that balance of talking about being a refugee, asking for help, talking about the countries you come from as places that have somehow not been able to succeed on a world stage, or have undergone like extreme difficulties or ravages of war, and at the same time embrace those identities and feel a sense of confidence and strength in who you are. I think that's a really difficult part of, I mean, I imagine, of having those identities. I'm Venezuelan. My parents are Venezuelan. We immigrated here for a better life. And that's definitely part of my identity as an immigrant, even though I'm not a refugee. So that's just something that I was thinking about as I heard those voices.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, so in the ancient Greek mythology, in the ancient Greek religion, the suppliant was known as a holy figure, as a sacred figure. You heard the king talk about how to harm the suppliant would be to bring the wrath of God upon the people who harmed the suppliant. Even Zeus himself is called, in some instances, not God of suppliants, but Zeus the suppliant. And here we are at a Catholic institution. I think this connection between this deity and the vulnerable, those who need assistance, and Zeus taking the form of a suppliant. So the reason you always accept a suppliant across the threshold of your home when they come asking is because that suppliant could be the god. And in ancient mythology, so this holy, and so that's one of the, I appreciate you bringing part of that into the conversation. That what does it take to be a suppliant and to be seen as human, and what's required of you to be seen by a culture that may not see your heritage, and how do you hold on to your heritage while doing that, when threading that needle? That's a really powerful thing. We have some incredible people also waiting for us on Zoom. We're only going to be able to go to a few more people both in the stadium and on Zoom, but Roman and Tatiana Topozhnikov are with us. They are Ukrainians who are now outside of their country, who've crossed borders and boundaries to safety, and they're going to join us next. Roman and Tatiana, what spoke to you tonight? What resonated with you?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Brian. Today's troupe was great. The play was excited as always. What we want to say, there are no places better than home. Every refugee wants to came back to his home and feel safety. We approach to every country, every government to support us now, but we want to say we are not immigrants, we are refugees, and we want to come back to our homes and be in safety, give to our children a safe future in their homes. So please support Ukraine. Please don't stop to say about war. It's horrible things going on, and only people of the world, only civilization may stop this. We believe that light will come soon in our country too, and thanks to you all for your support. It's very important to us. Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Tatiana, it's great to see you both. Tatiana and Roman were in Mariupol, as I understand it, and they had to cross into safety after seeing extreme violence. And to hear them speaking, having crossed a border, and I appreciate what they've been saying, is something we've heard others say tonight as well. We may be refugees, but we want to go home. That's a really powerful sentiment to bring into the room too. And we've heard about immigrants, but who end up matriculating into other cultures, but here we hear many people also saying our voyage is to make it home. That's our goal. We have one more person who has their hand up on Zoom, and actually I didn't hear the name. Alexis is going to join us, and then we'll go to a couple people who are waiting patiently in the audience, and then we're going to wrap up. We didn't come here to tie a bow on this conversation. We won't get to everybody, but we wanted to hit as many people as we could in both spaces and create some discourse. So, Alexis, over to you. You're next. What resonated with you tonight? What spoke to you? What touched you?
Hi. First, I just want to say thank you for putting this on. Greek theater is something I absolutely love. Being a theater student and being someone who reads a lot of theater, something I always have enjoyed about Greek theater is its ability to traverse centuries and to be so relevant. And it's crazy that is the world that we live in. But something that struck me during the course of this discussion was the impact that it meant for the people of Argos to actually have a part in protecting these people and bringing them in to safety. I think it's really easy to forget that we as citizens of a free nation, it's not just our leaders who are in charge of getting people to come and to put them into safety. It is also on us. And I really appreciate that the play mentioned that, and that was one of the key plot points was well, me as the king, I can't do anything without the voice of the people. And I really appreciate that is also on us, the audience. That is our responsibility. We are just as guilty if we do nothing as we are just as much a part of the solution. And also, I just want to thank all of the actors and all the panelists for sharing their stories and making this fiction from thousands of years ago a reality for me and for others. Thank you so much. It's so important.
Thank you so much, Alexis. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, Palaskis says he won't do anything without the will of his people, and he's more like a democratic leader. In the 5th century, Athens was a democracy, a democratic experiment, where they were making a play that was reflecting their form of government back to them. And it says something to us now. We can't simply blame our leaders, as Alexis said. We have to take responsibility for the fact that we hold the power. You have been waiting so long and patiently. Sir, I've been having in my ear, go to the person in the stripes, go to the person in the stripes. But we're going to go to you, and we may go to the person in the stands up here as well. I think you've been waiting very patiently after. And then maybe we have one last person, maybe from the panel or over here who might like to say something, and we'll wrap things up. But over to you, sir. Go right ahead.
Well, thank you. I definitely agree with our panelists. It's a little chilly, so I will keep my remarks brief. The line that really resonated with me from the reading was the phrase, fear begets fear. And I say that because when I go home to my small community that I grew up here in Indiana, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of misunderstanding. And I really commend our panelists as well who mentioned that we here today are not turning a blind eye. And I really want to be the kind of leader when I go back home to my little small town, to whatever community that I end up, to help others not to turn a blind eye, to really seek out to where our hearts can be and where we can help those who are seeking refuge. So I would be interested in hearing from the panelists words of advice for a young person to go out there and make a difference in the world.
This seems like an appropriate time to really ask the panel to respond. If anyone would like to respond, to the young man from a small town in Indiana who wants to go back and counter the fear and maybe the defenses that are up in that small community and make connections to why people should care about refugees. I don't know if anyone wants to. Yeah, Ara.
I don't know how much it will relate to what you said, but I do want to say that these people are really resilient and they are not as weak as we sometimes think, because millions of them are back in those countries. And even those who have left are like these storms that happened in Florida. There are circumstances that push you out for a period of time and you want to go back to your homes. And so these are really strong and resilient people. They are already working, but this may be an hour of need that they just need a hand. And that is something that we need to understand and build partnerships rather than feel pity for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Arif. Yeah, Lynn, thank you. I really appreciate it.
I just have a short comment on it. That I think, like you said, you want to seek the way how you can open your heart and to help other people who seek refugee. And I think we can start small. So let's say if you can convince your parents, to sponsor a student exchange, for example. There are thousands of students across the world want to come to the United States just to study in high school and experience what we have. And we can start right there. You can start at your community, at the homeless shelter, work with the youth club to do things that you can guide them and open their heart to others. But I also want to take the final thought to our Ukrainian friends across and other people across the world that we are not turning our blind eye. We are feeling what you're feeling. We share your pain and we pray for you. And we hope that you continue to fight and continue to hope that things will end and will be better for us all. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and thank you, Arif. I think there's something connected between both of your statements about the resilience, the power, the determination of people from countries like the ones you represent and the communities you represent and are part of. And I think it does speak to what the young man brought up, which is to say it's not just about seeing people's humanity, it's about seeing their strength. And when I watched this chorus of Ukrainians delivering these lines, all I saw was strength, even when they were purportedly talking in words that were vulnerable. And they held the king to account. Oh, you say you're moral, you say you're just, well, do the right thing. Why are you even deliberating? You are the people. You represent these people. Do not harm us in your indecision. And I feel like maybe this Greek tragedy isn't a tragedy, but it leaves us on the precipice of a tragedy that it could be our tragedy if we don't act when we hear the strength and determination that's been represented on this stage, when we don't do at the very micro level the things that our panel are representing, but on the macro level when we don't demand justice and assistance for those who need it. And so I'm really grateful to our panel. There's a person in the stands who's been waiting for some time, and we're now at the end of our time together, so there may be someone who wants to speak on the panel, but no pressure from the audience to sum everything up into one perfect statement, but you're going to have the last word of our audience members tonight. Over to you. What spoke to you tonight? What resonated?
Kira and Maxime both mentioned feeling and meaning. And it was amazing to listen to the 10 actors and to the 6 panelists. The power in their voices was incredible. So I think that it was amazing that we're all able to come together in this ritual of words in this play that has been played probably thousands of times over millennia. And I would like to notice that for refugees, anyone who's fleeing war or a bad situation, it's already hard enough to voice the problems that they're going through, and to expect them to be able to voice those issues perfectly is unreasonable. So I think that being able to reach emotions and meaning through these rituals of words is the most powerful tool that we have for cultural dialogue for refugees and immigrants, when it's very difficult to reach each other with words. It's important to walk away from events like this where our words actually are working and to carry those true feelings and those true meanings with us day to day as we go through our actions. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful last word from the audience, from the bleachers, from the stands. A ritual of words. I like that very much. That we made a ritual of words in the football stadium where maybe words aren't normally part of the ritual. And we had an exchange across boundaries and borders and across time. They created a space where it made it just a little bit easier to speak, I hope, and also a little bit easier to hear and to have an exchange. You know, we've had so many people over the last 15 years say, I'd talk about my experiences of trauma or loss or war with other people who haven't experienced them, but it just takes so much energy. And what the actors gave us tonight was some energy in this hallowed space so that we could have this conversation, so we could have this exchange, so we could begin to have this conversation. So before we wrap things up, and I can hear, for those who are watching on Zoom, know that the temperatures here in South Bend are plummeting every second that I speak. But we're going to wrap up very soon. I wonder if anyone else on the panel had anything else you wanted to say, just out of deference to you. Yes, no pressure again in a very short period of time to sum everything up, but you'll have the last word.
Just to answer one of the questions that say, our experience, and by the time it fades, kind of faints. We don't talk about that, and it kind of faints. But it never faints. It's always there, but just kind of gets silent. Like tonight, I did bring this flower that represents that in one day, 8,000 people got killed. Just one day in my country. This represents like the white part, it's like mothers holding hands on a coffin of their kids. I just want to say, yeah, it does fade. It don't fade, but it kind of gets silent, you know, after you talk for so long, you kind of just get silent, you know, but it never fades. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Even giving words to what you were wearing that I didn't even notice until you pointed at it, and naming it is such a powerful way to bring us toward the end of this conversation. But it's not the end of the conversation by any means. Christina, do you want to? Yeah, please.
As a real reaction to what you said and to the play, there was a breaking point when women said, we'll hang ourselves. And I wish you don't have to make decisions like this in your life. But in my life, I've decided that I can give my life away for what's happening in Ukraine. And tonight, I want to remember all the fallen heroes and those who are defending the country, our country and other countries of who are sitting here. And thank them all for what they've done and what they are doing, for their courage.
Thank you so much, Christina. Yeah. So powerful to hear you say those words and to know that you mean them and to know what they mean, which is, you know, that these words are of life and death significance. Yeah, Lynn. Yeah.
We have a lot of young audience. And so you don't hear a lot about Vietnam because it was so far past. So Vietnam War ended in 1975. So that's a long way before many of you were born. So, and then one of the Zoom guests was talking about the ultimate goal of the refugee is one day they be able to make it home. And that's really, really true, you know. When I left Vietnam, and the only time that I had the opportunity to get out without getting caught, without getting shot to death, without being captured, was when the storm coming. Most of the time when we're in the ocean, the storm coming, you're not going to go out to the ocean. But for us, when the storm coming, we're going out there because that's the only time that we don't have a Coast Guard, and we were able to go out there without getting into trouble. So I experienced a lot of suffering throughout my childhood, and particularly during the time when I left Vietnam. So every Vietnamese boat person reached the land. There are 4 Vietnamese died in the ocean. At the time when I went out to the ocean, we went out 3 boats. And each boat is probably about 150, 168 people. And my boat was the only one survive. So when it comes to suffering of war, like I said before, it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter what country you come from. We experience the same thing. And the people who experience the war, the only hope that they have at the time it was peace. And then for a refugee like us, when we walk away from our homeland and come to another land and build everything, we still carry the same thing that someday we'll be able to make it home. And so I just want to share with all of you the feeling of the people who flee their land, go to another country, and start from ground zero. It's an amazing journey. It's a lot of challenge. I start from ground zero just like every other refugee, from learning the language, dealing with the weather, get to know the city and the area where I live, to know the law where the city I live. All of those taking place little by little, and it's a tremendous challenge. So I hope that in the future we will have more opportunity to open our heart to refugees across the world who be able to, who allow or be able to make it to United States and help those people grow and build a life that we have today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We are now at the end of our time, and I feel like, Lynn, that's a really powerful place to sort of put ellipses at the end of the conversation. By no means a period, because we can't end the conversation there, but to say, take us full circle. The play begins with a prayer, with the chorus of suppliants asking to be seen by the gods and be seen as humans and not criminals by the people who might receive them across the border. And I hear your prayer. I hear your calling out for the world to see the very things you've been bringing into the space, and your fellow panelists. And I just want to thank you for bringing us full circle with those beautiful last words. I'd like to close with a short benediction, which is to say, before I thank the actors and panelists, at the end of every Theater of War Productions performance, we say this: if you related to anything that's been said on the stage or in the audience or on Zoom, know this: you are not alone in this virtual and physical room that we built together, this ritual of words. You're not alone across the country and the world, as evidenced by the people that you've been hearing from on the other side of the planet tonight. Most critically, you are not alone across time. And that can be both comforting, and it can also be disturbing to know that 2,500 years later, we're still struggling with some of these same issues. And those who've borne witness to their truth on the stage have driven it even made that discomfort even more clear to us tonight. After an early performance of one of our performances, someone stood up and answered a question I often ask audiences, which is, why do you think the playwright wrote the play? And this person stood up and said, I think he wrote the play to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. And I hope we did a little of both for everyone that was here with us tonight, not just here at the Notre Dame football stadium, but across the country and the world. Comforted that we can come together across very disparate human experiences and make connections that bring us together. Comforted that we have the capacity through words and storytelling to create spaces where we can hear and see each other's humanity and imagine each other's experiences, even if we can't know them. The act of trying to imagine is an act of empathy. And it's as morally and as much an obligation as any other thing we could possibly do. And afflicted by the reality that there's so much more work to be done to address the suffering of refugees and people like our panelists and the people they represent, and of course the people who have joined us on Zoom and the suppliants in the play all over the world, and those who weren't represented in our conversation because we don't have the infinite capacity. We'd fill this entire stadium with people and we still wouldn't represent all of the nations, all of the people who deserve to be part of this conversation. So this chorus has been an amazing amplifier through which it's been refracted, but we know we've only scratched the surface. Comforted and afflicted, we hope we've left you with some of both tonight. And before we close, I simply want to thank our actors and our amazing panel with a huge round of applause for their participation tonight. Our actors over here, I'd like to also offer my thanks to Theater of War Productions company manager Marjolaine Goldsmith, who's been running the Zoom behind the scenes and is responsible for our work on Zoom. Thanks to our agent, Anya Backlund, and our captioners. I know you heard the Ukrainian translated to English in real time, Kathy and Dolores, and to Oksana and Anya for translating the script into Ukrainian. Our immense gratitude goes to University of Notre Dame for hosting us and their forum on war and peace. We're so honored to be here and be part of this. I hope we do more events here and that we get to stay in dialogue with you. But I hope you'll also come to our next digital event and stay in dialogue with us in the weeks and months to come. Our digital work is supported by the Mellon Foundation. We thank them for their steadfast and ongoing support. You can follow us at Theater of War, spelled Theater, Theater of War, and you can find out about our next events. We hope you'll come to them or join our mailing list at theaterofwar.com to learn about upcoming events or find ways to help some of the refugees and the organizations that we've listed there. Our next event will be the Long-Term Care Trilogy, which we'll be announcing the end of this week in Toronto, but you'll catch it on Zoom at the end of October. There'll be 3 back-to-back nights of ancient Greek plays as well as Shakespearean plays with choruses of caregivers who work in long-term care and nursing facilities in Toronto, and we hope you'll join us for that one. After that, we'll be doing the Nurse Antigone on November 2nd, which has a nurse of frontline critical care nurses performing the chorus of Sophocles' Antigone as we frame conversations about the past, present, and future of nursing. These are some of the projects that you'll hear and see if you come to our website and be part of our mailing list, but we hope you'll continue this conversation, not just here, but in your places of work and of worship, and that the conversation we've started tonight, but by no means finished, will radiate out of this iconic stadium and into places we couldn't have imagined and continue in ways that we couldn't have imagined in the weeks and months to come. So I just want to thank everyone who's joined us physically here in South Bend and stayed to the cold end of our conversation tonight. We really appreciate your fortitude, especially to our panel. I want to thank those who joined us on Zoom from around the world. It was an immense honor to perform for all of you tonight and to engage you in this critical discussion. We are signing off now from the football stadium at the University of Notre Dame, wishing you all well and sending best wishes for health, safety, for peace in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you. It's been an absolute honor to be with you. I hope you have a great night and that we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.